So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Foong. I am a banker. You might be wondering, why would a banker be here today in front of you? Don't worry, I'm not here to sell you anything. Neither am I here to lecture you about finance and investments and all those. In fact, I'm not going to give you investment advice of any kind. In fact, it is going to be a little bit more like a career advice. So I think that is literally my topic for today, which is beyond the blueprint, and soon you'll find out why the topic. I just wanted to make sure that I would introduce myself first, a little bit about myself. I am a banker by profession. I just want to give you a bit of a background of my upbringing, and this is going to relate in my opinion. I am no different than a lot of you here. I grew up in a very middle class family. In fact, my father was a lecturer in UITM for almost 40 years. One job for almost 40 years. And I'm going to tell you why it's quite interesting. And what happened was, I grew up in a very typical household. Obviously, academics is very important. High school, in SPM, I don't know whether you still have SPM now, but back in my days, SPM, I'm a straight A student. So, in a way, yeah, wow, back then. But in the end, so obviously, I did my best in school. I joined a lot of sports related activities, a lot of other things that I do, like any of you guys sitting here today. So obviously, I'm one of those. I think a lot of you could relate to this story, which is I'm one of those where after SPM, what do I do, right? So what I did was I actually went straight into chemical engineering. So a lot of you might be wondering, why chemical engineering? Long story. I went to do diploma in chemical engineering because it's one of the cheapest. And of course, I was one of the best students when it comes to chemistry in school. My father was a lecturer in chemistry. No relation whatsoever in terms of how well I did in chemistry, but I just thought, if I were to do something like that, parents back in the day say, if you're in Malaysia, oil and gas industry is where you need to be. And therefore, chemical engineering, why not? So there I went into diploma, did quite well. I got an offer to go into Nottingham University. Back then, the campus in Semenyih started operating this first year, and I was the first batch in Semenyih. If any one of you had went to Nottingham University or Semenyih now, obviously way different. It's almost 20 years for me there, since I was there. So now, after that, what I did was I went to the UK for 2 years for my final year in chemical engineering, and I realized one thing, which is I realized that chemical engineering, or engineering for that matter, is not for me. So I think a lot of you here may somehow relate or not, but I think what I'm here today to tell you that my journey since when I was a kid all the way till now is quite different, and that's because it's at the back of the fact that I, for one, didn't have any interest in chemical engineering. I just could, study. I could get good grades, and there I went into chemical engineering. And then onwards, right, what I realized is one thing: when you don't really have an interest and your heart is not in it, chances are you might have to, look for other things, and we want to see what else will we be doing. And in my year 3, that's where I realized that the financial line and the investments, the community, all these things excite me more than engineering does, or chemistry does, for that matter. So for that, I actually went into studying anything I can about the financial markets. And I did it myself. I didn't join any classes. I had to do it in a self-study way. And I was in Nottingham, right? If any of you have been into the UK, you realize that it's in the middle of UK. I had to travel down south to London to attend all these courses where I had to go and pay for myself. Take the train 2.5 hours down to London to go and, attend classes and join seminars and things like that to learn about investments. Wikipedia and Investopedia were my friend. So I went on and on to study about that. It's practically self-study. Fast forward, graduate already. My parents obviously asked, so when are you going to come back and start working, or get a job over in the UK? Isn't that very familiar? That is a very typical journey of, a student in university, right? I think no different than most of you here anyway. So not everyone has gotten everything figured out in school, right? Let's put it that way. And, if obviously I didn't pursue engineering, apply for jobs in the UK was obviously my strategy, right? You wanted to stay there, make pound sterling. So what happened is I studied one more year master's in international business, not engineering, clearly because no interest, coupled with the fact that I want to stay there for longer to give myself a better chance to get a job. So I stayed there, did my master's, realized that, okay, it's not easy to get a job there. And guess what? When I was doing my thesis and my dissertation, they call it back in the day, my final year project, global financial crisis happened literally while I was typing my thesis. So not only that I couldn't, it's so hard to get into the financial line in London. Is what they hire the best minds in the world literally to go into investment banking and banking in general. So it's a little bit like New York, right? You heard about the Wall Street, right? London is equally as prestigious. So what are my chances from someone who doesn't really have a pedigree, have any backgrounds? My grades were not fantastic. There were a lot more of my classmates who did much better than me to get a job there in the global financial crisis, right in the middle of it. So the chances are slim. I actually applied for 40 jobs, 40 investment banking, consulting and investment related jobs. Couldn't get any interviews. Or maybe if I did, also a few that I couldn't get to the next stage because people are just clamping down on hiring. Then I realized that I have to pivot. I have to think about whether or not I still want to get into the financial line, but then I have to start thinking about coming back to Malaysia and do it. Or take maybe an auditing job, an engineering job that I don't like in the UK so that I can stay there longer, and then maybe I could get a chance to actually get into the financial line a few years down the road. So I had to make a choice, and the choice was I interviewed for a few positions here in Malaysia. So here I am. I started my career in Malaysia in the banking line, in the investment banking line that I wanted in Malaysia, not in the UK. So things like this actually shake me because a lot of decisions I get to make along the way throughout that journey. So now, of course, I've been in this line now, or in the banking line now for more than 15 years now. And I would tell you that obviously I have no regrets. If you look, for being here, talking about this, clearly I have no regret. Had I regretted, obviously I won't be here. So, I just wanted to make sure that, I share this journey and this background before I give you some kind of hint and advice on how did I manage to maneuver and navigate throughout this whole, career trajectory that I had. Now, I just wanted to leave you with 3 main points. In my opinion, having gone through that journey, no different than most of you would have probably either gone through or about to go through. I think the number 1 point is that don't be afraid to actually make the change. So the life is not, a race. At the end of the day, you might think that your peers or your, classmate or your, friends have got it figured out. They got it figured out that, they studied what they wanted, they did what they wanted, and they did what they studied, and their journey is very smooth. At the end of the day, it's not a race. What I'm trying to say is that you will encounter moments where you might have to pivot, right? And you might want to think about whether or not you want to do it, obviously. And secondly, if you really choose to, if your interest and passion may not be there, you might just have to consider that. And when you do, please, one thing I want to tell you is that you have to do some self-sacrifice, because you think about it, you will have to actually study the topic of your interest that you want to move into. And a lot of these times, you do not have it in front of you. It doesn't come in the form of a classroom. I literally go through Wikipedia and Investopedia, tab by tab, link by link, knowing what is CDS, CDO, derivatives, all these terms that I have no clue, I have to self-study. So things like this, right? If you think that you want to move and pivot, you can, but you better make sure that you are actually in for it. And you can't just say that I have no interest in this line, I want to get into this line, but I am not going to do anything about it. That is the obvious, clear roadblock, in my opinion. So I think that is my first point. My second point is that, you know, at the end of the day, there's a very popular TED Talk by Angela Duckworth. The biggest predictor of success is grit. It is not because my father was in chemistry or a lecturer. It wasn't because I'm a banker. It wasn't because I did engineering. Those shaped me and helped me. But at the end of the day, grit. What it means by grit is perseverance and persistence. So what it means is the self-study, the going down to London by myself in the cold, paying with my own money when I don't have much, literally. Go and mingle with people that I do not know and shake hands and network. Very, very uncomfortable. But if you go through that, it's something that you will experience it in your career. Even though you got it figured out, believe me, in order for you to be successful, you still have to have that anyway. Let alone if you really think about wanting to move your trajectory of your studies or your career, actually. Even more so, right? You need to be uncomfortable and be ready to take that challenge. So obviously I changed, even in my career now, I actually, took a year off. This place called equity derivatives, not many people know about it. Took a year off. I went to wealth management, got back in, and so on and so forth, right? Even in my career, when I thought that I got it figured out, there are many, many different ways that it will push you towards. And the version that you're seeing right now in front of you would have never been the case if it wasn't because I moved away from my initial derivative field into wealth management, where I do talks like this almost every week. That was my job. I had a little bit of stage fright. I was obviously not talking the way I'm talking right now. The version that you're seeing in front of you is literally trained, and also there's plenty of experience that comes behind it. But again, great perseverance were the reason. My favorite YouTubers and all these celebrities, right, were talking of my favorite people are about teaching us on communication, presentation, and interpersonal skills. Plenty of those in the websites and everything right now. TED Talks, you name it. These are the things that I then end up picking up uncomfortably and then go through it, and hence I'm here today. So lastly, I just wanted to make sure that I cover this, which is you may not feel that this is relevant to you now because you pay the tuition fee, you come in here and you study, right? Straightforward. Be ready in your career, whether you're pivoting or not, to be not so calculative and be humble. Reason being, if you are not humble and you are being calculative, if you're always thinking about what's in it for me, how much am I getting paid, how long do I work here until I get promoted, believe me, not many people will want to teach it. At the end of the day, you could be very, very smart, but if you don't have the humility in you and the fact that you are always calculating, why am I doing more than my colleague? Why am I not getting paid more than my colleague who's a bit younger than me? You will be guaranteed to experience this in your career. Just be ready not to let it phase you. Because why? The minute you stop calculating and you really, really try to build value for yourself and therefore the organization or wherever that you're about to go to, right, you are going to reap the dividends at the end of the day. Mark my words. People do not want a complainer. People do not like people who always think they are very, very smart. Rest assured, there's always a ceiling to how smart you are, because at the end of the day, attitude matters more. And why do I say that? It's because if this is what's important in your career, let alone if you really want to pivot from one field into another, one career path to another, even more so, be ready to have the mindset of taking one step back and in order to have two steps forward. So that literally is something that I've experienced myself. I feel that this could be something that you will experience yourself too. Be ready when you pivot. Of course, you need to make some sacrifices. You may not be as quick and make as much money as your peer or your friend that's sitting next to you. Don't let that deter you, because I'm glad to say that at the end of the day, it's not a race. And going back to my first point, it is not a race. It doesn't matter how you start. It's more important how you finish. So that, in my opinion, is very, very crucial. And because of that, I think a lot of you, like I said, is going to take this away, hopefully very positively, and hopefully this will give you some inspiration on how, if any of you are looking to switch, or even not to switch, right? At the end of the day, you think you got to figure out now, you never know. You never know. And I mean it in a very positive way. I'm not here to tell you that what you're deciding now is a wrong or right thing. There's no such thing. You will only know it when time comes. And to be ready to actually, sacrifice in that sense for it. And lastly, I think I don't have much time. And I just wanted to leave you a last message, which is, when you are given the opportunity, you just, you have to take it with both hands. You really have to try to embrace it and try not to overthink it sometimes. There will be a lot of pressure coming from parents, coming from peers, coming from many different angles. But you will sometimes have to justify yourself. And parents, I am a parent myself. I can now finally understand how my parents felt. I can, immediately now tell you that we don't mind our children to move around and all these things. We just want them to be happy, right? Don't you always hear that as parents? The truth is, not just that. We want you to be happy, but we most importantly want to know that you have gotten it covered. Which means you tell me, if my son were to tell me that if I want to move, I don't want to be studying this anymore, I want to be doing something else, the chances are parents will be supportive on the outside, but in the inside, they may not be. And in order to make parents feel connected to what you want to do, right, it's literally to show them efforts and also progress that you are actually working on to try to get there. And your parents and your friends and your family will then feel that they're, I guess, my kid has got it covered. So yes. So that's all from me today, and I hope this can really help you in your career journey that all of you will definitely embark on at some point. So thank you very much.